So you spent your hard-earned dollar on some lead. You put the time in and you finally get your gun tuned to perfection. But as the day progresses, or even by the next day, you lose your tune. I got some tips for you guys. Stay tuned. What's up guys, Galvin here. Welcome to the basement edition of Bass Avenue. Here I'm going to be doing unboxings, product reviews, and tinkering with Airguns. Thank you guys for tuning in and for all the love in the comment section. I'm glad you guys are enjoying. Now, today I want to share a tuning issue that I had with my FX Impact that I used in my first video. And the issue is that my velocity dropped. So in the beginning of the summer, I originally tuned this rifle to shoot the 31.2 2165 NSA Slugs at 1010 feet per second. Now when I began filming the video, I realized that my velocity dropped from 1010 feet per second to 980 feet per second, and my groups were all over the place. So I quickly thought of readjusting my hammer spring tension, and I was able to restabilize my projectile at 930 feet per second for the sake of the video. So what caused my gun to become untuned and what caused my velocity to drop? I want to cover a few points that's going to help you identify what can cause your rifle to become untuned. Now I want to start off with the question that I think a lot of beginners will appreciate. Can you tune your gun once and be done? Well, unfortunately, the answer is no. And what I found throughout the years is that with PCPs, you have to constantly tune your rifle according to the altitude and the climate that you're currently shooting in. So I mentioned two things, altitude and climate. Now with altitude, a lot of the common problems that I see people do and they don't think of is that they tune their rifles at home at a lower altitude, which has a higher air density, and they're planning on shooting in a higher altitude area. So their gun's shooting well at home. Next day comes, they travel to a higher altitude area and their velocity is lower than what they originally tuned their gun at. That's because in lower altitudes, you got a higher air density, higher air pressure. When you travel to a higher altitude, you got lower air density, lower air pressure. So your velocity and point of impact changes drastically. Now, I also mentioned climate. Another issue that people don't take into consideration is when you tune your rifle and it becomes cold, when the cold temperature comes, the air inside your air tank and your plenum contracts. Therefore, your velocity and shot count is gonna drop, which is ultimately gonna affect the harmonics and your groups. Now, with higher temperature, it's vice versa. As the temperature increases, air expands. So what you're going to see or notice that the air is going to expand inside of your tank, inside of your plenum. Therefore, your velocities are going to rise, your point of impact is going to rise, your shot count's going to rise, and hopefully you're still grouping pretty good. But climate does affect your tune. Now, in regards of my rifle, as far as altitude goes, I've been shooting in the same area all summer long, so I know I don't have an altitude issue here. Now, climate, remember I said in the beginning of the summer, I tuned this rifle to shoot at 1,010 feet per second. So when I began filming my first video, it was a lot hotter. So I'd imagine that my velocity, if anything, should have increased from 1,010 feet per second to about 1,015 or 1,020. There's no way it should have decreased to 980. So my guesses are that I don't have an altitude issue here. I don't have a climate issue here. Now what I have and what I'm placing my bets on is that I have a mechanical issue here. My hammer spring adjustment might have came undone. My C1 might have loosened up. Something may have broken within the rifle. I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do is take this gun apart, check it out, and we'll see what's wrong with this rifle. So I went through the 3 factors, eliminated altitude because I've been shooting at the same altitude all summer long. So altitude is out the window. Now climate. I eliminated climate because, remember, I tuned this rifle to shoot at 1,010 feet per second in the beginning of the summer. And as the summer progressed, the temperature increased, therefore the air expanded in my air tank, air expanded in my plenum, which means, if anything, my velocity should have raised. So I'm eliminating climate. Now all I'm left with is a mechanical issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip this gun down all the way to the hammer system, and I'm going to build it back up, while inspecting my hammer system, hammer spring, Delrin bushing, my C1. C1's got to be at the right depth according to Ernest Rowe. And if you guys need any help taking these guns apart, I'd like to refer you to Ernest Rowe Masterclass 910 Airguns and Airbucks. So gonna get started on taking this gun apart, and we're gonna inspect it, see what's wrong. Okay, so I got the gun apart here. Couple findings. My hammer system, hammer spring, hammer spring guide, was a bit on the sticky side. I probably put too much lube on it when I put it back together or was doing my maintenance. I use silicone oil that's specially made for air rifles, so I may have put a bit too much there. So I'm going to clean all that off. Now, my valve rod was a bit sticky as well here at the end. Another finding was that my C1 was backed off to just over 7 millimeters. So I gotta fix that. Another finding was that my front cocking block is completely metal, and I don't remember if it was completely metal or if it had a black plastic liner around it. So if any of you guys know about that, give me a holler on the comments. Truly appreciate it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off by cleaning the hammer system. Then I'm going to clean my valve rod. Then I will be reinstalling my C1, making sure that the depth is at 6.5 millimeters. And once that's all done, hopefully that'll fix the issue. So let's get going. Alright, she's back together. I cleaned up all the gunkiness inside of the hammer system. I made sure the depth on my C1 was back down to 6.5, and I put some Loctite on the threads. Put her all back together. Let's not forget, I had a question about this cocking block. It was all solid metal, and when I Googled imaged it, it looked like all the other cocking blocks had some type of plastic liner around the puck on this cocking block. So if you guys know anything about that, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd truly appreciate it. So it's all back together, guys. Got the bottle back on. Reg pressure's at 160 where I had it before. And all I got to do now is put the top rail, cheek rest, mount the scope, and we'll take her out for a spin. Alright, I'm all set. I got my FX chronograph linked up to my iPhone, and we'll see what my velocity looks like. I'm at 155 bar, and I didn't really touch my hammer spring tension or my macro wheel. But just so you know, I always keep my macro wheel on max, and I back off on my hammer spring tension and work my way up with only my hammer spring tension. That's how I tune. So we'll see how this goes. These are the 31.2 grain 2165 NSA slugs. $9.95. 1,000.
1,002. 997. 995. 1,000.
Okay, I'm gonna go up on my hammer spring tension. Just about 2/4 of a turn.
Four. 1,002.
Alright, so I'm back at 1,000 feet per second. I'm gonna keep it there because I only have a little bit of this ammunition left. So I don't want to waste too much of my ammunition, and we'll see how it groups. Alright guys, so I'm all set. 1,004 feet per second, and I'm going to shoot some groups at 50 yards. So let's see what they look like. Start off with the number one, and the wind's picking up pretty good. Start off with the number 3. Alright, that was just about perfect. With the wind dying down, probably about a hole in hole right there. So I'm gonna go have a look at it. So there you have it guys. I was able to isolate my issue. Wasn't the altitude, wasn't the climate. I figured it was gonna be a mechanical issue. So I took the gun apart, and sure enough, I found some stickiness on my hammer system and valve rod. So I cleaned all that up, and I was able to reseat my C1 back down to 6.5 millimeters where it should have been, put the gun back together, and I'm back in business shooting the 31.2 grain 2165 NSA slugs at 1,005 feet per second. And you saw that group. That was about the size of my pinky here. I want to give a quick shout out to an acquaintance of mine, and that's Justin Welch, who put me onto these 31.2 2165s, and they've been doing pretty good for me. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Ted Beer, because if you guys want to see a little bit more on these 2165s, check him out. He just put a video out, and he confirms that the 2165s 31.2 grains shoot very well out of the M3 800 millimeter barrels. So check him out. Hey guys, couple honorable mentions here regarding tuning. If you tune your rifle to shoot a certain projectile and later on decide to switch, you're going to have to retune. Chances are it's going to be a different weight, different diameter, therefore it's going to shoot differently out of your rifle. Now every now and then you might find two projectiles that will shoot well with the same tune, but if you want to be spot on, I recommend retuning for each specific projectile that you're trying to shoot. Now, my second tip is falls upon us. So you're going to be shooting well throughout the day when the sun's out, it's nice and warm, but as soon as 4 p.m. hits, that temperature is going to drastically drop, and your point of impact is going to change and your velocity is going to drop. So plan your trips during the day or act accordingly. And this leads me to my third tip. Plan your shoots. Look at your weather forecast, plan your tunes, look for a consistent week of temperature, and plan your shoot, plan your tune according to that consistent week. That's all I got for you guys. I hope my tips help you guys out. My intentions are to truly help out air gunners out there. I'm just sharing my experience, what I'm going through, and how I'm dealing with it. I really hope it's helping you guys out. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Follow me at Bass Avenue on Instagram. Keep hammering and stay tuned for some more content that's coming up soon. Peace, guys.